Jeremy Gotwals is the founder of Hold On Publishing. They're ranked next to VaynerMedia and Deloitte Digital as one of the top innovative agencies to watch by Influencive in 2021. He's a musician, publisher, and brand developer who's responsible for helping hundreds of authors, brands, and thought leaders become best-selling authors to share their stories with the world. His long list of clients includes such names as Dalai Lama, Terry B. Jones, who's the founder of Kayak and Travelocity, and also companies like Nike and Tech Moguls. Please help me welcome Jeremy Gotwals to the show. So let's jump right into it. So first of all, I think one of the biggest questions that a lot of people have is how do you identify the right talent to hire for your business?
I'm so glad you asked. It's funny that you mentioned it because we recently released a book with one of our authors called Hire Who You Want on exactly this. And it's the approach that Heister takes, and we helped him write this book. It's a little different than you might think. And it's very similar to the approach we take. We focus on vision and we focus on character and we focus on culture and we focus on personality. I would rather hire a C player that has the potential to become an A player, but who has incredible spirit and passion and moxie. I would rather, and who loves what they do and who loves people. I would rather hire that person than an A player who's just like, doesn't like people.
Yeah, you got to have love for people for sure. Is there any specific skills that you're looking for in your business when you're like, hey, we need to hire someone new?
Yeah. So when it comes to, when it comes to skill sets, we always look for people who we know are going to be able to work fast and work in a changing environment because as a small company, things are constantly moving. So when we look for talent, we look for people who are comfortable with improvisation. So in our business, understanding having emotional intelligence is a big differentiating factor behind creating a piece of work that is going to make a return on investment for our clients. So these are just a few of the things that we look for when we are looking for talent.
Now, on the flip side of that, when you're looking to retain your employees and keep the best people working with you, what are some strategies that you use?
When it comes to retaining talent, something we've received, a piece of feedback that we've received in the past is that the independence and sort of the freedom, the autonomy that our company provides is of high value here. We're not helicopter managers. We allow our team to have a great deal of autonomy. In fact, I think we could micromanage a bit more. So we're very much like, here's the mission, here's the goal, here's the objectives, here's the SOPs, and go do it. But I think one of the things that we've learned is that in one of the mistakes we made in the past is that maybe we weren't involved enough in making sure that all of the steps of the formula lined up. So, but certainly one thing that's really great for us, in the talent that we work with is really keeping that spirit of cooperation, that spirit of collaboration. And our longest standing people, who have edited books for us for years, for instance, they have a lot of autonomy. I mean, Rebecca Spivey, for instance, one of our editors who's been editing books for us for something like 5 years, she's someone who I'm just like, hey, I put her on with an author and I don't have to think about it. She'll tell me when she thinks she's going to be done with a project, and I trust that she's just going to know exactly what to do in her role. I don't have to worry about it. But with some of our more junior talent, that can change and differ. So I think that spirit of cooperation, that spirit of collaboration and giving our team a lot of autonomy and a lot of freedom and a lot of space to really be CEOs of their own department. I think that that's crucial when it comes to making sure people are set up right.
Well, and when you have so many folks that are all over the world, how do you approach training and development for all those employees?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. Training and development is honestly one area of our company that we could really improve upon. In the past, when we were first scaling our company, there was a lot of haphazard and there was a lot of chaos, when it came to, onboarding and training. And really what we've learned is that it's your processes, it's your written repeatable processes, it's your SOPs, your standard operating procedures, it's documenting your approach. And as our author John Heister says, knowing what great looks like, knowing what does great look like, understanding some of these fundamental things are a few things that have helped us improve training. So just like last week, I was training a couple of writing apprentices on hook creation, and I've got them wax on, wax off, practicing writing hooks. And one of the things that we found to do was, hey, we asked them, because they're both writers. I said, write me 5 hooks for your books, for the books you're working on, And so I contextualize a piece of training to something that would be important in their lives, something that would be important to them specifically. And they both had really great feedback to share. And actually, tomorrow I'm going to review these new hooks. But knowing what exercises are going to have the most net beneficial impact for your end product or your end service, but also knowing what things are going to engage and really encourage your team to, everyone loves to say think outside the box, but to really think beyond the limitations of their given formula and really to innovate. That's where you really see innovation.
I think there's so many small business owners that are listening right now that can completely understand where when you said that, like, in the beginning it's haphazard and you're kind of trying to work it out and figure it out. There's so many people that, you're right, are just trying to work it out. What are some things and maybe even some tools or software that you use to manage your team, but also manage those processes so everybody's on the same page?
Yeah. So, one tool we were using for a while was Monday.com, and we switched to Asana. The jury's still out on whether we prefer one or the other. Like, we don't have enough data yet to say yes, Asana's better, or wow, we should have stayed with Monday. We don't have enough data on that. But, what I also learned is that you'd be surprised what you can do project management wise with G Suite, with some of the free tools about Trello. Our authors, for instance, our clients have given us a lot of feedback that they really love Trello for planning their projects. And so a combination of these tools, it's really about what tool works right for you. I asked the team to choose the tools that they felt the most comfortable with, because they're the ones living in the tools and executing every day. The larger your company the larger your company gets, the more that becomes true. So, one area that we're really buckling down on right now in our company is improving these things, because what we found before was that, yeah, your revenue can scale, but holy shit, if you don't have the right infrastructure, or if there's holes in your infrastructure, you can leak money and your team can get burnt out. So right now we're using Asana. We're using Slack for team communication. Slack has been a glorious time saver. We should, at our most optimal times and productivity, very few emails were exchanged back and forth between members of our team. Most of the day-to-day correspondence lives in Slack. And depending on the size of your team and what you've got going on, simple Zoom stand-up meetings a few times a week or a couple times a week to cover project status is sometimes, depending on what kind of company you are, all you need to just keep that engine moving. Of course, for some teams, it makes the most sense to have that daily stand up. So, that really depends on you and your company and what you're doing. And I don't claim to be a process expert. I don't claim to be a systems and process expert. So that's one area where we're kind of like, okay, we've learned from our mistakes, and now we know that we have these things to improve on. So that's a very long answer to your question, but yeah, but that's a kind of an overview of what we're looking at.
Well, I can definitely attest to Asana because it's something that my team uses and we are
Yeah.
all over the world, and it's a game changer. It's amazing what that system can do. And I think there's very similar, just like you mentioned, like Monday.com, Trello, there's all sorts of different options, but choosing one that works for your team, I think is so important, and to stick with it even when it gets difficult, because it can be very easy to be like, this isn't working, we're out. But I think that there are things that your teams can do with that software. It's incredible. And I encourage people to check out that free version of whichever product that they're looking at, because it might be what meets your needs currently, no matter what size you are. And I know that you're in the same boat with remote employees and teams of folks. How do you manage those folks? Do you lean on the software, or is it more those in-person meetings over Zoom?
When our team was the most at the when our team at time our team has been the most effective when there is regular communication and regular Zoom correspondence. At the same time, you can overdo it. You can, like, we at the reverse of that, there have been periods where, even this year, where we've just burnt time in Zoom, like where just like I can track a lot of hours this year that have just been wasted on Zoom. That is just like, we did not, this a meeting didn't need to happen about this. Like, this didn't need to be a meeting. And I am not a fan of wasted meetings. I There's a healthy balance though, because your team needs to know that there's someone cares about them. Your team needs to know that someone is listening to them, that someone is concerned with their problems. And I think at our worst, I was so in the focus of my own specific responsibilities, which, at times is very scattered, and even when we're even with the largest our staff has been, like, I've had too many things on my plate. And I think I think at our worst, I've been isolated from my team at times. And that happens. That happens to founders, and it happens to leaders of companies, where we get isolated from our team and we're not giving them enough love. We're not giving them enough attention to their problems. And it's because we're so in our heads with the problems that we're trying to solve. And that can be really difficult. It can be a setup for a toxic and stressful environment, if you don't solve for that. So making sure that you're taking time away to shut everything else off and really, pay attention to your team is super important.
And I know that you recently scaled your business. So, talk to me a little bit about how you handled the onboarding process for all those new employees that you hired.
Yeah. So, I mean, as we were building a lot of our onboarding processes as we were scaling. So it wasn't like, yay, we've got this great process, now we're going to go scale. It was like, no, we were hiring and onboarding and kind of figuring it out as we went, as we were scaling. And so the process, became one that certainly improved over time, but that was certainly a trial by fire. And there were a lot of mistakes we made along the way with that. That we hired some great people and made some great decisions, and we also made some costly decisions. And so, and then in the aftermath of that, now our practices today are much more thorough, our hiring practices today are much more involved, have more details than they did in the past.
And if you could look back on that scenario, because I think this is really good for people to hear, people that are super successful talk about those mistakes that they made. Looking back on when you were scaling your business, is there anything that you would go back and change, or you're like, hey, this is something that I always mention to people, don't fall into this pitfall?
There's so much I could say, and so much that I would love to tell my former and past self. You know, one of those things is don't scale too fast. I we were very attracted to that growth. And the thing is, sometimes it just happens. It's like one day you're hunting for leads, and the next day you can't. You have too many leads, and that's what happened with us. It's like it was end of 2020. We were just figuring out some of the pieces to great lead flow. And then into 2021, it was like, holy crap, we had more appointments than we could even handle. And there was this instinct to be like more, more. There was this instinct that revenue solved all problems, which there's truth in. But the problem was that we knew how to operate. We knew how to operate a company of this size, but we weren't set up to operate a company of this size. And so what happened was, well, yeah, we just kept closing new business, but as a result of that, there were a lot of things that we didn't see, a lot of unforeseen things. Our infrastructure, our foundation was not as strong as it should have been. And when it comes to hiring, there's this mantra of hire slow, fire fast. I believe there's a lot of truth in that, but I also think that it's not just about hiring slow and firing fast. It's not just about hiring smarter. It's also about really investing the time to really understand what does great look like with your employees, as our author John Heister says. What does really identifying, really documenting, really understanding what makes an employee a great fit. And what we found is that sometimes even top performers are not a fit, because a top performer may not be a culture fit, or a top performer might just be there to collect a paycheck. So really, I'd rather take a B performer who is really loving the energy and loving what they do and loving the people than an A performer who is salty and bitter and doesn't have that love.
Absolutely. I think that's good for all of us small business owners to keep in mind, is that personality oftentimes is so much better, because if you have a personality, we can teach those skills, and not necessarily looking for someone with those skills at the beginning is the best way to go about it. But I appreciate you sharing everything with us today, because your knowledge about scaling your business is so vast, and we could chat for hours about this, but I just want to thank you for spending time with us today to chat about all these different things. Now, if people want to get in touch, where's the best way to connect with you?
You know, if people want to get in touch with me, a really great secret is to just go onto my Instagram and follow me and send me a DM. Just Jeremy Gotwals. It's like the question Gotwals, but there's one L. Um, I typically also my number. Texting me is also a much faster way than email. But if for those who want to get in touch with me, follow me on IG, send me a DM, and then I'll send you my cell if it makes sense for us to have a conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for being with us today.
Hey, yeah, thank you so much, Jillian. You rock.